eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. The spiritual place of transcendental pastimes of Krishna is portrayed in the second verse. The super excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokul, has thousands of petals and a corolla like that of a lotus sprouted from a part of his infinity aspect, the whole of the leaves being the actual abode of Krishna. Text number 3. The whole of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is a hexagonal figure, the abode of the indwelling, predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name, consisting of 18 transcendental letters, is manifested in a hexagonal figure with sixfold divisions. Text number 4. The world of that eternal realm Gokul is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. Its petals are the abodes of gopis who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the guarding like dham, that is, spiritual abode of Sri Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. Text number 5. The surrounding external plane of Gokul is described in this verse. There is a mysterious quadrangular place named Shwetdeep surrounding the outskirts of Gokul. Shwetdeep is divided into 4 parts on all sides. The abode of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Anirudh are separately located in each of these 4 parts. These 4 divided abodes are enveloped by the 4-fold human requirements such as piety, wealth, passion and liberation, as also by the 4 Vedas, namely Rig, Sam, Yajur and Atharv, which deal with the mantra and which are the basis of achievement of the 4-fold mundane requirements. 10 tridents are fixed in the 10 directions, including the zenith and nadir. The 8 directions are decorated with 8 jewels of Mahapadma, Padma, Shankh, Makar, Kachap, Mukund, Kund and Neel. There are 10 protectors, Dikpalas, of the 10 directions in the form of mantra. The associates of the hues of blue, yellow, red and white and the extraordinary potencies bearing the names of Vimala, etc. shine on all sides.
The Lord of Gokula is the transcendental supreme Godhead, the own self of eternal ecstasies. He is the superior of all superiors and is busily engaged in the enjoyments of the transcendental realm and has no association with his mundane potency. Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy. Still, her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastime, in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency Rama, by casting his glance at the deluding energy in the shape of sending his time energy, is an auxiliary activity. Text 8. The secondary process of association with Maya is described. Rama Devi, the spiritual chit potency, beloved consort of the Supreme Lord, is the regulatrix of all entities. The divine plenary portion of Krishna creates the mundane world. At creation, there appears to be a divine halo of the nature of his own subjective portion, Swamsha. This halo is divine Shambhu, the masculine symbol or manifested emblem of the Supreme Lord. This halo is the dim twilight reflection of the supreme eternal effulgence. This masculine symbol is the subjective portion of the divinity who functions as progenitor of the mundane world, subject to the supreme regulatrix, Niyati. The conceiving potency in regard to mundane creation makes her appearance out of the supreme regulatrix. She is Maya, the limited, non-absolute, apara potency, the symbol of mundane feminine productivity. The intercourse of these two brings forth the faculty of perverted cognition, the reflection of the seed of the procreative desire of the Supreme Lord. Text 9. All offspring of the consort of the great Lord Maheshwara of this mundane world are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane masculine and feminine generative organs. The person embodying the material causal principle, namely the great lord of this mundane world, Maheshwara, Shambhu, in the form of the male generating organ, is joined to his female consort, the limited energy Maya, as the efficient causal principle. The Lord of the world, Mahavishnu, is manifest in him by his subjective portion in the form of his glands.
The Lord of the mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands of heads, eyes, hands. He is the source of thousands of avtaras in his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands of individual souls. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name of Narayana in this mundane world. From that eternal person has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual causal ocean. The subjective portion of Shankarshana, who abides in Paravyoma, the above Supreme Purusha, with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, Yoga Nidra, in the waters of the spiritual causal ocean. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshana existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. The same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension. That is, they are the eternal universal soul, Mahavishnu, possessing thousands of heads. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb and from the space between his two eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine, manifested halo.
The function of Shambhu in relation to Jivas is that this universe enshrining the mundane egotistic principle has originated from Shambhu. Therefore, the same great personal Godhead, assuming the threefold forms of Vishnu, Prajapati, and Shambhu, entering into the mundane universe, the pastimes of preservation, creation, and destruction of this world. This pastime is contained in the mundane world. Hence, it being perverted, the Supreme Lord, identical with Mahavishnu, prefers to consort with the goddess Yoga Nidra, the constituent of his own spiritual chit potency, full of the ecstatic trance of eternal bliss appertaining to his own divine personality. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus with its stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. Before their conglomeration, the primary elements in their nascent state remained originally separate entities. Non-application of the conglomerating process is the cause of their separate existence. Divine Mahavishnu, primal Godhead, through association with his own spiritual chit potency, moved Maya, and by the application of the conglomerating principle, created those different entities in their state of cooperation. And after that, he himself consorted with Yoga Nidra by way of his eternal dalliance with his spiritual chit potency. By conglomerating all those separate entities, he manifested the innumerable mundane universes, and himself entered into the inmost recess of every extended conglomerate, Virad Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who had lain dormant during the cataclysm were awakened.
The same jiva is eternal. The same jiva is eternal, and as for eternity and without a beginning, joined to the Supreme Lord by the tie of an eternal kingship. He is the transcendental spiritual potency. The divine lotus which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls and is the origin of four-faced Brahma versed in the four Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Text 24. Then the goddess of learning Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions. O Brahma, this mantra, namely, Klim Krishnaya Govindaya, Gopi Jan Vallabhaya Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desires. O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled.
Says Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Shvetadvip, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals augmented by millions of filaments in the transcendental land of Goloka. On his world there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute, resonant with the divine sound with his lotus mouth. He is worshipped by the amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, imparted by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma, born from himself, through his 8 ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of the twice-born, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor, Godhead himself. Enlightened by the recollection of the Gayatri embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose Text 31. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years. He is the undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency, possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever-blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyamasundar, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrsimha, Vaman, etc., as his subjective portions. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as the indivisible, infinite, limitless truth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is the absolute substantive principle, being the ultimate entity in the form of support of all existence, whose external potency embodies the threefold mundane qualities, namely Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and diffuses the Vedic knowledge regarding the mundane world. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his own pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as a transcendental entity of ever blissful cognitive rasa. Lowest of all is located Devi Dham, mundane world. Next above it is Mahesh Dham, abode of Mahesh. Above Mahesh Dham is placed Hari Dham, abode of Hari, and above them all is located Krishna's own realm named Golok. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to the ruler of those graded realms. The external potency Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Just as milk is transformed into curd by the action of acids, but yet the effect curd is neither same as nor different from its cause, namely milk, so I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Sambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction.
The light of one candle being communicated to another candles, although it burns separately in them, is the same in its quality. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who exhibits himself equally in the same mobile manner in his various manifestations. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who assuming his own great subjective form, who bears the name of Shesha, replete with the all-accommodating potency and reposing in the causal ocean with the infinity of the world in the pores of his hair, enjoys creative sleep, yoga nidra. Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion, Brahma, receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in all the effulgent gems that bear the names of Surya Kanta, etc. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesha upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds.
The three worlds are composed of the 9 elements: fire, earth, ether, water, air, direction, time, soul, and mind. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom they originate, in whom they exist, and into whom they enter at the time of the universal cataclysm. The sun, who is the king of all planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is as the eye of this world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, by whose conferred power are maintained the manifested potencies that are found to exist, all the virtues, all vices, the Vedas, the penances, and all jivas from Brahma to the meanest insect. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruit of activities of those who are imbued with devotion and impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities, of all those who walk in the path of work in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works, no less in the case of the tiny insect that bears the name of Indragopa than that of Indra, the king of the Devas. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service, attain to the bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation.
I worship the transcendental seat known as Svetadipa, where as loving consorts the Lakshmis and the unalloyed spiritual essence practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as the only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is the purpose gem, all water is nectar, every word is a song, every gate is a dance, the flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable, tasty, where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental oceans of milk, where there is eternal existence of transcendental time, who is ever present and without past or future, and hence is not subject to the quality of passing away, even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Goloka, only to a very few realized souls in this world. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to this science set forth in the following 5 slokas.
When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of congenion and service, bhakti, super excellent, unalloyed devotion characterized by love for Godhead is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. The highest devotion is attained by slow degrees by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of spiritual evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. These primary practices of devotion are conducive to the realization of loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself.
Abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion, characterized by love in the shape of the supreme service. Listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed, the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate objects. I am Pradhan, the substance of matter. I am Prakriti, material cause, and I am Purusha, efficient cause. This fiery energy that belongs specially to the Brahman, that inheres in you, has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects. Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here. Welcome back, Stacy. Hare Krishna. How was your drive up today?
Oh, it was beautiful.
2 hours?
It was 2 hours, but I got to watch the sunrise.
Oh, good. That's one of my favorite activities of the day also, seeing the sunrise. It's easy to miss. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Today we have a lot of sacred ground to cover. So I'm going to go right into our discussion, continuing discussion. Actually, the discussion is eternally in continuance because there's always more to say about Krishna. His qualities are unlimited. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Vidatam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, this is a prayer we say before we talk about Krishna. Om Ajnana Timirandasya means that Om is a name for Krishna. And it's an invocation, a way that we start. You've heard of Omkar before, Om. Ajnana means ignorance or without knowledge. Om Ajnana Timirandasya, that he's saying, I was born in darkness with no knowledge. And Jnananjana Shalakaya, but I've been awarded that knowledge, I've been given the knowledge by my spiritual master, who, actually it's a poetical verse. It says a shalakaya. It's like when a eye doctor uses a special instrument to open your eyes and to put some medicine in your eyes, then you can see. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Now, because of my spiritual master, I can see. And therefore I offer my obeisances unto him. So out of gratitude, we begin by offering our obeisances to our teacher, and who has given us this knowledge. And without knowledge, a specific knowledge of the spiritual world, one cannot desire to go there. You have to hear about something and understand it before you can develop a desire for it. And we heard today in the Brahma Samhitas, Nitya Nitya Sambandha Prakritischa Paraivasa. We have an eternal relationship, an eternal kinship with Krishna, but now that's somehow or other been obscured. And the process of bhakti yoga means to become uncovered again. And the process, as mentioned in one of the bhakti scriptures called the Vedanta Sutra, anavritti shabdat, which means that through transcendental sound, one becomes uncovered. By the sound vibration, one becomes uncovered. So we're continuing with hearing the teachings that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago in the city of Mathura, and then he left. And 500 years ago, another form of Krishna came called Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came disguised as his own devotee, a devotee of Krishna, but he was Krishna himself, according to the bhakti scriptures. And he came to teach devotion to himself. Means sometimes the parent will take the hand of the child and show how to write the alphabet. But one shouldn't think that the parent is learning the alphabet. He's or she is teaching the child how to write. So sometimes God comes to also show how one can become a devotee. And specifically, he gives detailed instructions. And these teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami encompass the basic teachings of bhakti. And just by knowing these and following them very carefully, one can attain the perfection of life. So last time, I had promised you something and I didn't deliver. And that was that I had read a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which indicates that when one becomes a little bit purified, then one attains the association of devotees. And from that association, then one takes to the path of devotional service. And it seems almost reversed. That's 10:51:53. Can I have that one? And plus an extra table because we're going to collect a few books today. How is everyone today? On a scale of 1 to 10. 10. That's good. Hansapriya said, we made it here. So that's always about 80% of the battle. If you just make it there, everything else should fall into place. As long as the vibration's going on. Thank you very much. So this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10:51:53. O my Lord, O infallible Supreme Person, when a person wandering throughout the universe becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the topmost devotees, and the Lord of the universe. So this verse has the words yarhi tarhi, when then. Everyone say when then. When then, yarhi tarhi. Yarhi tarhi. So we had heard about how one comes to devotional service by what is called agyata sukriti, which means unknown pious credits one gets. Bhaktivinoda Thakur described in a purport that Prabhupada quoted him in, that there are ways in which one gets spiritual credit in this world. One kind of credit is called Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. Say Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. Yes, Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. This is the kind of pious credits through which one gets the qualification to take up bhakti. Some people are qualified to take up bhakti, and they announce themselves. For instance, if we go out into public and we begin chanting Hare Krishna, then some people will come up and announce themselves, say, "Hey, I like this. I want to do it too. What are you guys doing?" And so forth, and many other manifestations of such enthusiasm or a sentiment towards appreciating bhakti activities. Where did they get that? It's unknown. It's a gyata sukriti. It's unknown. They don't know where they got it. But devotees are wandering throughout the world, and if one knowingly or unknowingly comes in contact with a devotee and performs some kind of service, even something seemingly insignificant, then one gets a deposit of bhakti unmukhi sukriti. Bhaktivinoda Thakur described two other kinds of credit that one can get, other kinds of sukriti. Do you remember what they were? They qualify one for material wealth. Like we talk about pious activities in this world. If you do good work in the form, like this is the law of karma. If you do some good works, then maybe in your next life, you don't remember what you did, but you're just born rich. And you have all kinds of facility. Have you ever seen this before? Somebody born rich? And they don't know why does he get it? Why does somebody else get it? Why is somebody poor when somebody rich? He has this kind of sukriti. He's performed activities previously that qualified him for these kinds of material facilities. And then there's another kind of sukriti through which one becomes attracted to knowledge and impersonal liberation. The idea of merging into God's effulgence, not developing relationship with Him, but merging, becoming one. So Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti is very special, and it comes from Vaishnavas. It comes from pure devotees of the Lord who are wandering around the universe. Actually, they do it specifically to give opportunity for people to come in contact. They're agents. They distribute the bhakti lata or the seed. Broadcast means, it originally is an agricultural term, which means to widely spread seeds. You broadcast them. So similarly, devotees broadcast Krishna's message and the holy name and so forth, so that people can get this bhakti unmukhi sukriti and begin. So we have, the Shastra says, this is why someone comes to devotional service. Now let me read the verse to you. O my Lord, O infallible Supreme Person, this was spoken by Muchakunda. When a person wandering throughout the universe becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the topmost devotees and the Lord of the universe. What did you think about that verse in regard to what we were just discussing? I'll read it again. O my Lord, O infallible Supreme Person, when a person wandering throughout the universe becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the topmost devotees, and the Lord of the universe. What did you note about that?
So Maharaj, you were talking about the 3 different types of Sukriti, and this one talks about the type of Sukriti one does which leads to devotional service. And before you get to devotional service, there's a step in between where you associate with the devotees of the Lord. And then this verse also says that that's the ultimate goal, pure devotional service of the Lord.
Yeah, and this verse is also saying apparently that when you become eligible for liberation, then you get the opportunity to associate with the devotees. It seems to be slightly contrary to what I was saying, doesn't it? About first you come in contact with the devotee, and then you get eligibility. This is noted by the acharyas who have commented on this verse. And they note a particular way in which the Sanskrit is in which the verse is written, there's a special Sanskrit rule, and that is putting the cause before the result, or the result before the cause. And they say, and that is typically done in Sanskrit verses in order to give emphasis. And they say the effect happens so quickly, the effect is mentioned before the cause to emphasize the quickness. That means association with devotees is so powerful, as it is said in various other places, that even with the lava matra, even of a fraction of a second of association. So he's emphasizing and putting the result before the cause, and it's a kind of emphasis in the Sanskrit language to say that it's so powerful that practically it happens instantaneously. It almost happens before you even meet the person. So that's the sense of this verse, giving emphasis to the importance of meeting a devotee. Because as soon as you do, then it's a foregone conclusion that you will next be able to take to devotional service. You'll have eligibility to take to devotional service. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that before the sun rises, you'll see the sun rays on the horizon. And similarly, he says, before you see Krishna, you'll meet a devotee. And it's certain, when you see the sun rays coming up in the morning, pretty soon it's going to be daytime and you're going to see the sun. So it's certain, if you've met a devotee, it means pretty soon you're going to see Krishna. But this verse is emphatically saying that it happens so quickly, and it's so sure that it's saying that you become qualified, then you meet a devotee. But actually, they're just reversing those two forms of speech, the yarhi tarhi, then when. And in the last class, we were reading the enumeration of the various practices of devotional service. How many are there in all? Listed by here and by Rupa Goswami. 64. 64 principles of devotional service, 64 activities of devotional service. And they're all listed here in this book. So, using the law of primacy, which means you start with the most important point and you end with the most important point. In speech, in giving a speech, you're supposed to start with your strongest point and end with your strongest point, so people remember at the end. You shouldn't just drift off at the end. Well, okay, that's it. So similarly, in listing these 64 items of devotional service, Rupa Goswami or Sanatana Goswami hears from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that the first 4 are vitally important. Do you remember what those are? That he mentions as essential for beginning the process of devotional service.
Accepting a spiritual master, is that the first one?
Yes.
Okay. I don't remember the other, but that one I remember.
Okay. They're all related to that.
The next one is carrying out his orders or obeying his orders.
Taking initiation.
Yeah.
Serving.
Serving spiritual master.
Yes. Anything else? There should be inquiry also.
Inquiry.
So they're all related to having spiritual guidance, personal spiritual guidance. Rupa Goswami gives these as the first and foremost essential items of the 64 in practicing devotional service. And then the last 5 are actually repeats of items that he's mentioned before in the 64 items of devotional service, and he does so for emphasis. And then he says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says something remarkable, and that is that these 5 are so potent that even if one has a little contact with them, even without faith, if he's not offensive, then he'll come to the perfect stage of devotional service just by having a little connection with these 5 items. We should know what they are, right? Because even without faith, if you're not offensive and you have a little connection to these 5, you'll attain the perfection. So, what are they? 1, association with devotees. You have to have association with devotees. Why is that important? Okay, Hansapriya says that's how you get Krishna. That's when you get Krishna. That's a good point. And what else? What other things can you say as realization, Ramananda Saka Prabhu? That's good. He's got his own microphone back there. It's on.
Association with the devotees, chanting the holy names of the Lord.
Wait, we're talking about association with devotees and why it's important.
Oh, why it is important?
Yeah, why is that important? Why is it listed as such a primary element of devotional service?
Because we tend to get the qualities of whomever we associate with.
Can you prove that by Shastra or logic or personal experience?
By the logic I can prove. because persons who associate with the drunkards, they end up being drunkards.
This is not personal. Okay. You end up as a drunkard on the holy name. I can see that.
And also we see that even within our own association of ISKCON persons who are associated with the members of ISKCON, they also tend to become like them.
Okay.
So that's my own experience.
We notice from observation that we become who we associate. We come like who we associate with. Okay, you had a point about association? Thanks, Ramananda.
So sometime before we read this verse, Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Koy,
Yes.
Labhamatra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy.
Yes.
So the example is given of an iron rod. If it is placed in fire, then it becomes as fire. So
Nice. So when the iron rod comes in contact with fire, it becomes hotter, then it becomes non-different from the fire. It takes on the qualities. Hansapriya has a point.
So you always mention that it's not what you know, it's who you know it matters. So it's important for us to know Krishna, but it's impossible to know unless you associate with the people who knows Krishna. So I just think it's really important to have that who you know and people who are practicing and a support system to get to the point where you want to go to.
Yeah, Prabhupada points out in the... Do you have a point? Oh, good. Points out in the Nectar of Instruction that people join associations in order to stay focused on their craft or their profession. He cites the... you turn that microphone the other way. The stock exchange, New York Stock Exchange, people, they want to get more into trading stocks, they'll go join the association of stock holders and so forth. And there's other kinds of association. Once you get in that, then you can become concentrated on that.
When I first met who was to be my spiritual master, just hanging out around with him, I would get a contact high. I really felt something powerfully. And
so practical experience, just by being in association, you begin to take on those qualities. Yes?
I have a question.
Okay.
So is it not just...
Use the microphone because it's being broadcast.
So narrating the holy name or believing in the holy name, that is the Mahamantra, is that not enough to be in association with Krishna?
Is the holy name enough to have association with Krishna? Yes. Therefore, it's one of the... That's the next... One of the other 5 is to chant Hare Krishna, right? So the 5 items, one is to associate with devotees, the other is to chant Hare Krishna. So the name of Krishna is directly Krishna himself. There's no difference between Krishna and Krishna's name. So if you just chant Hare Krishna, then you'll be constantly in contact with Krishna. Can you do that?
I think you can do better.
I can't, that's why I'm here. I mean, if you can just chant Hare Krishna, go ahead. Haridas Thakur just chanted Hare Krishna all day long, but generally people can't just chant Hare Krishna. We do regulated practice because, you start, say, 16 rounds and the mind goes, 16 rounds? How long are we going to be here for? It's like, for as long as it takes to do 16 rounds. Stupid, now sit down. And then you start chanting, and then the mind's like, oh, that's 3, is that 16? Can't we go somewhere else? We're a slave to the mind and the senses. Therefore, there's regulated devotional service. Yes?
But
hold that right up close.
Yeah. When you are talking about those 16 rounds, is it any rule that we have to do 16 rounds? Like, even if you do less rounds and still you are in that place, is it enough?
If you do what?
Is it necessary to have that 16 rounds? I mean, because then it will be like a rule. Then you will try to avoid it. But if you just do less rounds and your mind loves it, then is that not enough?
Well, the thing is about rules, although they may seem restrictive, it's just like if you learn how to organize your stuff at home. There's a process called Getting Things Done by David Allen. He wrote a whole book about it, and now he's got a huge following all over the world. And I heard an interview with somebody who's an artist, who said, I used to think all these kinds of organizing schemes were just restrictive, and it would restrict my creative process. He said, but when I learned actually how to organize everything and organize my time, I found out that I could actually clear my mind, and I had more availability for my creative side and so forth. And there's a way in which, paradoxically, rules free us. Therefore, there's a poetical way Prabhupada translated a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which begins Ragadvesha Vimukhtaistu, and he calls the regulated principles of freedom. And the fact is, we're either a slave to our mind and senses, which dictate to us all the time, do this, do that, or we're a slave to Krishna, take your pick. So, if we take to the instruction of Scripture, Shastra, as our guiding light, as our guiding principle, then we're following Krishna. And we can do that, or if we just do whatever we want, then the senses tend to take us astray. This is the idea. We've been wandering astray because we don't have a place to regulate ourselves, a way to regulate ourselves. 16 is a number. Yeah, it's just a demarcation. But those who accept it accept a certain principle that there's, for instance, in ISKCON, we accept Prabhupada as our founder Acharya. And as a principle, Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Acharyopasanam. You should follow the Acharya. You should worship the Acharyas. So you have to pick an Acharya somewhere. In any discipline in your life, you have to have an Acharya. If you're an athlete, you're going to find an Acharya. If you're a scientist, you're going to have your Acharyas. If you're a sociologist, my mother was a sociologist, and she had her Acharyas. She was a scholar, and she used to quote all the time. In fact, I just got a paper that she wrote many years ago, my sister sent to me. And it was, I could see that these were her Acharyas that she would quote. And psychology, same thing. So everyone has a principle because everyone's dogmatic, because you can't possibly go back and research everything yourself and be the source of all knowledge. Therefore, you have to accept. So at some point, you have to accept an Acharya. And Vedic knowledge is self-effulgent, and so is the Acharya who presents it. And once one accepts an Acharya, then one has a place to make a stand against the raging senses, which are sometimes compared to the waves that come from the ocean. And there are sleeper waves that come too. You know about sleeper waves? Sleeper waves, you know about this? Chittahari?
No, I heard of it.
Yeah, if you go up the Mendocino coast, you'll see signs along the coast that they'll say, beware of sleeper waves. And then there's a little explanation. A lot of times people go out on the headlands and the coast and they think, oh, this is very beautiful. And it is. And the ocean's out there. It's got its blue and emerald and foamy white. And then they go further and further out onto the rocks and they're watching. And then someone, here, take a picture of me. And so he's about to take a picture. And then a wave comes along, huge wave. I mean, for hours there's not a wave like that. And all of a sudden it comes along and it grabs the person on the headlands and pulls them into the water. Click, click. There's your last photo. And so the senses are like that. They drag us away at any given time. And Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita, that even a person who's well educated, even a person who's very intelligent can be dragged away by the senses very easily. Even great yogis in history, like Vishwamrita, was enticed when he heard the ankle bells of Menaka. And he just kind of took off. And so there's a principle, especially for beginners in spiritual life, that one should accept an acharya, a place that say, okay, I'm taking shelter here. And one accepts the teaching of the acharya. They say, the acharya says 16 rounds. And you go, okay, 16 rounds. I don't question. I'm just going to take the 16 rounds because I'm aligned in that way. Where are you aligned? Nowhere. I'm just saying, that's not true. You're aligned with your mind, and now you can go wherever the mind tells you to go. If the mind tells you 64 rounds one day, yes. Another day tells you, go fly a kite instead, then you'll do that. So we have to align ourselves properly, proper authority, and that's what Shastra is. Shastra is the aligning force in our life, and Shastra is accepted as the axiomatic truth and self-effulgent knowledge. If you don't take that, then you'll take something else. But we take Shastra as perfect. And those who represent Shastra are acharyas. Yes?
Before I took initiation, I was talking to my spiritual master, and he asked how I was doing and how my rounds were coming. And I said, well, I was chanting 16 rounds, but I didn't think they were so good, so I cut it down to 10. And he's like I could do 10 great ones, but 16 bad ones or something. And he said, well, you should chant 16 rounds, even if you don't think they're good, chant 16.
Yeah, that's good. That's the voice of the Acharya of Shastra saying, do it like this. Now, if you're not able at first to chant 16 rounds, then it's a good idea to pick another number that you won't go below. This is called numerical strength. And this way of practicing spiritual life was showed by the direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and sung about by their biographer Srinivasacharya, who sang Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Nati Bikalavasani Krito, and said that these Goswamis, who were liberated souls, they every day practiced the rules and regulations of devotional service very strictly, and they counted how many names they chanted, how many times they bowed down, how many shastras they read, and so forth. And you'll notice that this is the norm for practice in devotional service. For instance, even in, counting is important. So if you take it that you want to advance, then you have to make a stand somewhere and say, this is the number that I won't go below. And then from there, you can increase. If you count, then you know when you're increasing, and if you don't, then it's very difficult to tell.
So what is the difference between just hearing the Mahamantra and narrating it?
What is the difference between hearing the Mahamantra and saying it?
Yeah.
Well, if you say it, you also get to hear it. And when you say it, you also get to express your heart. For instance, you're the one saying it, and it's a prayer of it's calling out to the Lord. O Krishna, Oh, Radharani, please engage me in your service. So when you say something to someone, then you get to express from your heart. You're the one saying it. You're initiating it. And it's coming through your larynx and the machinery, but that's coming from you as the soul. So you're expressing it. So it's good to hear, but also it's very satisfying to say it also, because you're the one expressing yourself. Please save me. Please engage me in your service, you're saying.
But if your voice is not good, then you pretty much don't like to hear your voice, right? You just want to hear somebody else's, which pleases you.
Well, if your voice is not good, it can only mean if you have laryngitis or something like that. I've had that before, where I just couldn't utter a word. And in which case, it's a little bit difficult to chant. I mean, it's impossible to chant. I can't say a word, in which case would do the best I can. I still do the beads, and I'll say the mantra in my mind, which is okay also. But just to say I don't like the sound of my voice, so I won't do it. That's coming. And the point, this is a little bit speculative. Just follow what the process is, and you'll find success. Okay? All right. Yes, Shraddha.
Maharaj, I've also noticed that as people start progressing in devotional service, their voices become very, very sweet. I mean, I've never come across a advanced devotee who doesn't sing beautifully.
Yeah, and Mahaprabhu met a devotee in South India who was ordered by his spiritual master to recite the whole Bhagavad Gita every day. And only thing was, he couldn't recite the Bhagavad Gita. He really didn't know how to say the verses properly. He never learned how to read Sanskrit properly or anything. But he was just doing the best he could. And everyone else was criticizing him, saying, "Ha ha ha! What is this recitation? You're not even saying it right." But Mahaprabhu came along and noticed that this person reciting the Gita was crying sometimes. And so he asked him, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "Well, my spiritual master asked me to recite the Bhagavad Gita, and I know I'm not doing it right." He said, but Mahaprabhu said, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "Because whenever I think about how merciful Krishna is, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's driving the chariot for his devotee out of love, I start crying." And Mahaprabhu said, "Forget the pronunciation, you understood the Bhagavad Gita." So there's a way in which, and it's not that we should just forget the pronunciation or forget doing the rules and regulations properly, but one does the best one can. But simple devotion is actually what is the essence of the practice. So we have association with devotees, and scientifically, I mean, if you actually study the way the world works and observe it in your own life, how association affects you, you'll start to see how this is logically a very good proposal for if you want to advance. And that is, search out advanced devotees and then associate with them. And then naturally you'll take on the same qualities. And of course you approach association as a science as well. First you should be non-offensive, non-envious. And you should go, with an open heart. And the way to really get everything from an advanced person is to open their heart. As Burijan Prabhu says, everything's there in their heart. And if you open their heart, all the contents will flow out to you. So how do you open someone's heart? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnanam. He says, come with humility, and come in with service, and come inquiring, good inquiry, not, as Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita purport, not absurd inquiries. You don't really have anything to ask. You're not really interested. You just kind of concoct something, for the sake of throwing the conversation off course or something like that. These are absurd inquiries. But if you really want to know and you ask, then the person can tell, oh, this person's sincere about devotional life. And then the contents in the heart, especially if you go and you serve selflessly, and you offer yourself, say, I'm empty. You please put something in. Then you can get everything. Hanspriya.
I just realized last week that I was watching my mind, how it works and stuff, and I was thinking I'm so addicted to be slave of my mind. And I was thinking coming here is like going to the AA group.
That's right. Yeah, AA is a good example. People go and they have association with others who admit that they're addicted, and as soon as you admit I'm addicted, that's one of the processes of say, okay, I'm an addict. Then you can start dealing with the problem, and you get support from the other people and so forth. Yeah. Yes.
This is one of your favorite verses that talks about association, importance of association. That is Kapil Dev tells to his mother Devahuti, the Satam Prasangam, there it clearly says that association of devotees is important to get.
Yeah, and that's quoted twice in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami. That a verse from Lord Kapila Dev which says that when you have this higher association, then the sound vibration that you hear will enter your ears into your heart, and it will transform you. It will change you. And then it says step by step one will climb the ladder of devotional service to the higher stages.
Two more things, Maharaj. One is that Rajesh Virani Prabhu is joining with his family and he's sending his obeisances.
Jai Rajesh, Hare Krishna. All glories to you and your family. Thank you.
And the second one is another of your favorite verses, Maharaj, about hearing versus chanting question that Prabhu, it is that Atha Shri Krishna Namadi na Bahed Graham Indriya Sevan Mukho Hi Jivado Swam Ev Sparati Sad.
Yeah, that's a perennial favorite. It's stating that we can't understand Krishna with our blunt material senses, but if we render service beginning with the tongue, and this Purana specifically says that the service begins with the tongue, then Krishna will reveal himself. Shamalangi?
Yeah, this is also regarding association. I was remembering, I don't know the verse, but King Yudhishthir, he tells Vidura that, devotees like you, they carry Krishna in their heart, so wherever they go, the place turns into a pilgrimage. So, staying with devotees is almost like staying in a dham, so it's like...
That's absolutely true, yeah. And that's, that Krishna is... not just Krishna, but love of Krishna. The Swarup Shakti, the internal potency of the Lord is there within the heart of the devotee. And by connecting with somebody, it's palpable. It's something that one can experience, that one gets helped. If one actually sits in the association of a devotee, and what does that mean? It means satam prasangam mama virya samvita. It means you're going to hear something. It doesn't just mean sitting and talking idly, but you'll hear something, because devotees are preoccupied with speaking about Krishna. And you'll notice it yourself. It's not that you have to take a blood test or something like that to see, am I changed? How's the blood count today? You go home and you'll feel different. You'll feel like, I'm improved. I have something that I didn't have before. And my outlook on life is different than it was before, and one can experience that. It's very tangible. It's tangible. Okay, let's name the other processes of devotional service that are primary. He names 5. And so we named association with devotees, chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me see. I'm not sure if I went into this. But... yeah. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam. May I have, please, bring 10, 12, 39, and 3, 25, 35. And while you're at it, 1, 1, 2. That's 10, 12, 39, 3, 25, 35, 1.1.2. And 10.51, 53. And 6.2.10. They're engineers, they'll get it. So, in relationship with this verse, and I'll read the verse to you right now. The power of these 5 principles, actually I'll finish talking about the 5 principles. So, another one is deity worship the deity of Krishna. There's a process for doing this, and it's given by Krishna in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, called the Uddhava Gita. And Krishna personally tells how to worship the deity, how to worship his deity. What is a deity? how to worship the deity and so forth. And also there are very specific instructions that come down through other sages like Narada Muni. Narada Muni, one of the great devotees of the Lord, received specific instructions from Hayagriva about how to worship the deity, and that comes down in what's called the Narada Pancharatra. And therefore we get our Pantratriki Vidhi. Pancharatra means especially in this age for worshiping the deity, this abbreviated, let's give him a hand for getting all those. Process or a direct process for worshiping Krishna. And so the deity worship is sometimes compared to mailing a letter. Because if you have a letter and you want to mail it, you go to the post office. If you can find one anymore, they're closing all the U.S. post offices because of lack of funding. Don't look now, but we're becoming a third world country here in America. Closing all the post offices. So you have to go to a post office, an authorized post office, or find a post box. You can't put your letter in any box, and also you have to use an authorized stamp, and you have to use the right postage. Am I correct on this?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I just mailed some stuff. And if you don't do it that way, it's not going to go. So similarly, there is an authorized process for worshiping the deity. There are rules and regulations. And if you do it, then Krishna accepts it. And there's a reciprocation. It's not idol worship. It's not a concoction, but Krishna is actually present in his deity form. He can be present in his deity form because he's God. And God means he has inconceivable potencies. He can agree and does agree to manifest himself personally in the form of the deity. So worshiping the deity is one of the 5 very important items of devotional service. What have we left out? Anything? Chittahari? Residing in Mathura. So Mathura is the best place in the universe. It's Krishna's birthplace. And the whole Mathura Mandala it's referring to. Mathura Mandala means the whole area it's a spiritual city or abode or area in India, not too far from New Delhi. And you can feel it. When you go to Vrindavan, you can experience for yourself the difference in the atmosphere. I know someone who was, Ramananda Saka's going to tell. He's a big fan of Mathura. Go ahead. I've watched him there. He goes into ecstasy. Of course, he's always in ecstasy. But when he gets into Mathura, he goes into what we call turbo ecstasy. Okay, go ahead.
I have a question. Just speaking of the deity worship, generally people may have a concept that the deity worship means doing things like those things that pujaris typically do, which is just going and offering arati and things like that. That is a conception that people may have for the deity worship. But is it that only that consists of the deity worship, or are there more to it?
Well, I mean, obviously you have to go and offer artik and certain paraphernalia, and that is deity worship. But the difference is you should do it with the right conception. And you should have authorization, and you should also have the right conception when you're offering artik to the deity. It should be done with love.
No, okay, actually that's not what I meant by this question. My question is, there are other things also, for example, in the temple we do, for example, cleaning.
Oh, I see.
And there are many other services that go along with the maintenance.
Having a temple is deity worship. It means deity worship. And cooking, cleaning, and all these things are deity worship. So if you come to the temple and you wash the floor of the temple, or for that matter, the parking lot, you're doing deity worship, because it's all the property of the deity. So all those things combined. Otherwise, you can just go sit under a tree and read the Srimad Bhagavatam and chant all day. But especially in this age of Kali Yuga, it's necessary to have a focal point where everyone can come together and see Krishna and worship Krishna according to the rules and regulations. And yes, all the process, like if you come to the temple and ring the bell and offer obeisances, this is part of the process of deity worship. The deity is here, the deity is the center of Mountain View. So everyone here in Mountain View comes and they can see the deity and they're participating on Panchratrik Vidhi. Okay? Okay, so those are the 5. And regarding Srimad Bhagavatam, as one of the primary ways to advance in devotional service, a specific verse which is mentioned, I'm going to turn that upside down, regarding the efficacy of Srimad Bhagavatam is verse number 2 in the first chapter. And the verse says, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established in his heart. So, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim. This word Srimad means that the Bhagavatam is the most auspicious. And then we have the word Avarudhyate. Avarudhyate, which means that Sri Krishna is immediately brought under control and captured by those who hear the Bhagavatam. So this is the meaning of this verse, that Krishna is captivated by the Bhagavatam. And the acharyas commenting on this say that whether one is a beginner, a neophyte, or is a very advanced devotee, if one simply hears the Bhagavatam, Krishna becomes captured in the heart of that person. That's how potent this process of devotional service is. And Avarudhyate, Krishna is captured within the heart. Kritibi. And also 11:255. I read last time. And I'll read it again. Can I have it? 11:255. That bears repeating. So these 5 items of devotional service have been analyzed very carefully by the great acharyas, and they're telling us about how important each one is by giving various quotations from Scripture. And here's a verse in relationship to that discussion. How can the fire of material suffering, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the conditioned souls that if they call upon Him by speaking His holy name, even unintentionally or unwillingly, the Lord is inclined to destroy innumerable sinful reactions in their hearts. Therefore, when a devotee who has taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet chants the holy name of Krishna with genuine love, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never give up the heart of such a devotee. One who has thus captured the Supreme Lord within his heart is to be known as Bhagavat Pradhan, the most exalted devotee of the Lord. So, devotional service is a means by which we capture Krishna in our hearts. So you have to chant Hare Krishna and hear the Srimad Bhagavatam to capture Krishna in your heart. Avarudhyate, he won't leave. He, as long as you keep that vibration going, he's going to stay there. And for deity worship, we have 10:12:39. Yes. Another remarkable verse. You'll never be the same after you hear this. Are you ready? Yes. Yes.
Could you please explain again, like here when it is said in the Bhagavatam about capturing the Lord in the heart. So the Lord is already there in the heart, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is the reason of the heart. So what exactly do we understand? How do we understand this?
Well, he is and he isn't. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshu vashtita. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm there, but I'm not there. That's my mystic potency. I'm there in the universe, but I'm aloof from it. Krishna doesn't have to be anywhere, but he's there at the same time because he's everything. But his personal self, he manifests wherever he chooses because he's completely independent. And in the Shikshashtakam, Krishna, Lord Chaitanya talks about Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Pavitam Mam Mishame Bhavam Bude. What's the rest? I'm sorry. I'm thinking another verse. Just pull me out the Shikshashtakam. So, the idea is this, that Krishna is attracted to the Srimad Bhagavatam because it is the subject matter of his intimate devotees. He's most attracted to his devotees. In fact, he says many times that devotees are more dear to me than my own life. Uddhava is more dear to me than I am, or than anybody else. So what Krishna is really attracted to is the intimate, loving service of his devotees. And that's represented by, and that's all coming from Srimati Radharani. Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimat means Radharani. Bhagavatam means Krishna. So it's Radha Krishna. So it's Itam Bhuta Guno Hari. It's the same quality. The Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. And it's not different from his internal potency. And even Krishna is attracted to his internal potency in the form of Srimati Radharani, who's there present within the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what Krishna is interested in. His main interest in is loving exchanges with his devotees, and that's the topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So when he hears it, he becomes attracted. Anyone who's in that association of those discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam or shows an interest in the Srimad Bhagavatam and is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam then attracts Krishna, who stays in the heart in a very unique way. And in the fourth verse, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Jagadisha means what? Lord of the universe. Is that Krishna in Gokula Vrindavan or Goloka Vrindavan? Jagadish? Well, Krishna is the same anywhere. But he's slightly different occupation in the material. Jagadish means he's overseeing the Jagat. What's going on in the Jagat? 7-Eleven, Nordstrom's, Walmart, my favorite, Home Depot. I'd rather go to hell than Home Depot. But so, no offense. Sorry, and it's not a disclaimer. This is not a political statement. But this is the material world. Everyone's interested in building their own home and their own little scene and everything like that. It's not a very interesting place for Krishna. But in Goloka Vrindavan, in Vraj, what's everyone doing? They're running to find Krishna. They're constantly... You see, the form of Jagannath, his eyes are wide open. And this is actually a form of Krishna in ecstasy because of hearing about Vrajalila, about the intimate pastimes of Lord. That's why he's like that. But if you'll notice the descriptions of Jagadisha, like Garbhadakshay Vishnu, who's in the universe overseeing things, his eyes are half closed. He's yoga nidra, like 7-Eleven, forget it. They're not interested. But Vraj is interesting. Vraja means everyone's always going. That's what Vraja means. It means going, 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 going. It's open 24 hours a day. It's the city that never sleeps. Like they say Las Vegas or New York is the city that never sleeps. But the real city that never sleeps is actually Vraj. Because Krishna never sleeps. Because he's awake to his devotees all day long. In the morning, his mom's feeding him. Then he goes to the forest and he's with his friends all day long playing. They won't let him go home practically. So you can't go home now. And then, at night he sneaks out again to meet his other friends. And so it's like he's interested there. And so if someone starts talking about you and your very intimate pastimes with your family or something like that, you get interested, right? Like what if you're driving home and you happen to have the radio and the news on and a program comes on about, your life and says, he was born and he's really like this and like that. And when he was 4 years old, just like, wait a minute, what is that? Right? So, and all the people you love and everything like that, you'll really tune in. So Krishna is tuned in to the Srimad Bhagavatam. When you hear the Bhagavatam, then he appears in a very special manifestation, not as Jagadisha, but as as we hear, Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram, the son of Nanda Maharaj, then appears because of the mood of the devotee, because of his association. Yes.
So, Prabhu, how we read that even a slight association with these 5 items helps us develop devotional service.
It's like connection.
Yes, slight connection. My question is, like for exams or something, when we intensely read, the whole day looks like so different. But on other days, like sometimes we are not able to read, or we just read for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like that. So I'm thinking that in order to get the full benefit of it, it has to be like fully forceful and concentrated with the right attention and all that. Is that is the right thing, or what is the little connection?
Yeah, once you have that realization, it means you're getting some taste. Like, when someone gives you a little food and, can you just try it? It's like, no, I'm not really hungry. You just take a little bit and it's like, that's really good. Can I have another? And then you want more. And then when you get an appetite, you just like, bring the whole kitchen in here. I'm eating. So the same thing, when we start to develop a taste for such things, and we can digest it, then you can't get enough. Then you start thinking of ways to, block out other parts of time, so you can actually get time to hear it. It's not a matter of regulation, it's a matter of actual taste. If you have a taste for something, you just do it. It's natural for every living entity. You do what you have a taste for. And in the beginning, you have to take it like medicine. And as the medicine starts to work, then it becomes food. And then no one has to watch out for you. They have to call you in to do something else. This is ruchi, actually. Ruchi means people have to remind you, you've got a life here. You got to start helping out. You can't hear and chant all day and stuff, and things like that. You forget, that you have a duty in this world, or you might even to some degree neglect it because, And then, of course, you have to adjust your life in such a way that you have to be with that all the time. This is actually what it means to be renounced. It means you become so attached to the topics of hearing and chanting and performing devotional service that you just don't have time for anything else. Or interest. There's no interest in it whatsoever. Why would you do it? We don't do things we're not interested in, ultimately.
I just got reminded of the answer that you just gave for the question you asked, like why one should associate with pure devotees. As you just mentioned, because in the beginning stages, they give us the medicine that you should do this, you should do that, until we get the taste. So
yeah, that's true. And also, when we see others with more capacity, we start to realize how little ours is. And there's, and we see the scope for increasing our own capacity. If you live in a small town, big fish in a small pond, you think, I'm the big guy here. But when you go somewhere else where, it's a bigger pond and there's much bigger fish, you start thinking, I better grow. So it helps you to grow. Okay, so a little bit more. I read you the 10th canto, right? Yes. And then I wanted to also read you 3:25:35 about deity worship. This is specifically about the importance. 3:25:35 is about deity worship. Prashantite me ruchiramba santa prasana vaktranura lochanani rupani divyani vara pradani sakam vacham sprihaniyam vadanti. O my mother, Kapiladeva is speaking, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Mayavadis and atheists accept the forms of the deities in the temple of the Lord as idols, but devotees do not worship idols. They directly worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Archa incarnation. Archa refers to the form which we can worship in our present condition. Actually, in our present state, it is not possible to see God in His spiritual form because our material eyes and senses cannot conceive of a spiritual form. We cannot even see the spiritual form of the individual soul. When a man dies, we cannot see how the spiritual form leaves the body. That is the defect of our material senses. In order to be seen by our material senses, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a favorable form which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha, sometimes called the Archa incarnation, is not different from Him. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not, just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts various incarnations, He takes on forms made out of matter, clay, wood, metal, and jewels. There are many Shastric injunctions which give instructions for carving forms of the Lord. These forms are not material. If God is all-pervading, then He is also in the material elements. There's no doubt about it. But the atheists think otherwise. Although they preach that everything is God, when they go to the temple and see the form of the Lord, they deny that He is God. According to their own theory, everything is God. Then why is the deity not God? Actually, they have no conception of God. The devotee's vision, however, is different. Their vision is smeared with love of God. As soon as they see the Lord in His different forms, the devotees become saturated with love, for they do not find any difference between the Lord and His form in the temple, as do the atheists. The smiling face of the deity in the temple is beheld by the devotees as transcendental and spiritual, and the decoration of the body of the Lord is very much appreciated by the devotees. It is the duty of the spiritual master to teach how to decorate the deity in the temple, how to cleanse the temple, and how to worship the deity. There are different procedures and rules and regulations which are followed in temples of Vishnu, and devotees go there to see the deity, the Vigraha, and spiritually enjoy the form because all the deities are benevolent. The devotees express their minds before the deity, and in many instances the deity also gives answers. But one must be very elevated devotee in order to be able to speak with the Supreme Lord. Sometimes the Lord informs the devotee through dreams. These exchanges of feelings between the deity and the devotee are not understandable by atheists, but actually the devotee enjoys them. Kapila Muni is explaining how the devotees see the decorated body and face of the deity and how they speak with Him in devotional service. Yeah, and then the next verse I'll read also. Upon seeing the charming forms of the Lord smiling and attractive and hearing His very pleasing words, the devotee almost loses all other consciousness. His senses are freed from all other engagements and he becomes absorbed in devotional service. Thus, in spite of his unwillingness, he attains liberation without separate endeavor. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, even the third-class devotee who is not advanced in knowledge of the absolute truth, but simply offers obeisances with great devotion, thinks of the Lord, sees the Lord in the temple, and brings forth flowers and fruits to offer to the deity, becomes imperceptibly liberated. imperceptibly liberated. So it's in regard to the deity. There's so much more that can be said, but it's a study in and of itself. And then Sri Nam. Oh boy, get into the Nam Tattva. The importance of chanting Hare Krishna. And we'll talk about that a little bit more today, but I'll read you a very important verse that is given to us in this regard. And that is from the Srimad Bhagavatam 6.2.10. It's actually 9 and 10. The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a brahmana, or one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, or for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. And this whole section of Srimad Bhagavatam is about the importance and the power of chanting the Hare Krishna, chanting the holy names of the Lord. Okay, everyone satisfied? And then living Mathura. There's so much to be said about living in Mathura, especially, in the Sri Upadeshamrita, there's a description of the various grades of environments in the world. Vaikunta janito vara marupuri tatrapi rasotsavad, which starts off with talking about how there's Vaikuntha, and then there's the Mathura, and then there's the forest within Vrindavan and so forth. But in the Sri Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there are many verses given by Sanatana Goswami about the unique position of Mathura Mandala and how special it is. And when one reads those verses and understands what a special place it is, and then one gets the fortune to visit there, one can start to develop a relationship with Mathura, a relationship. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will say further on to Sanatana Goswami, even if one can't live in Mathura, and Mahaprabhu didn't live in Mathura, he lived in Jagannath Puri due to circumstances, one should live there within one's mind. So one should cultivate knowledge of Mathura and understand what is that holy place. It's an outpost. It's actually non-different from the spiritual world. It's manifest here in the material world. Gokula, Vrindavan. So one can hear about that and cultivate a relationship with Gokula and understand that that's an eternal abode and that's one's eternal home. We talked about the deity, Srimad Bhagavatam. Devotees, 10:51-53. Did I give that one? 10:51-53. Did I already give that? I did, eh? No. This one? This is a verse meant to bring our attention to the importance of association with devotees. Everyone still okay?
Yeah.
Okay. When the material life of a wandering soul has ceased, O Achyuta, he may attain the association of your devotees. And when he associates with them, there awakens in him devotion unto you, who are the goal of the devotees and the Lord of all causes and their effects. Acharyas Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur agree on the following point. Although it is stated here that when material life ceases, one attains the association of devotees, in fact, it is the association of the Lord's devotees that enables one to transcend material existence. Srila Jiva Goswami explains this apparent inversion of sequence by quoting the Kavya Prakash as follows: Karya Karnayoscha Porva Parya Viparyayo Vigneya Tisha Yoktihi Syasa. A statement in which the logical order of a cause and its effect is reversed should be understood as Ati Shayokti, emphasis by extreme assertion. Srila Jiva Goswami cites the following commentary on this statement: Karanasya Shigra Karitam Vaktum karyasya purvam uktau. To express the swift action of a cause, one may assert the result before the cause. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that the merciful association of the Lord's devotees makes possible our determination to become Krishna conscious. And the Acharya agrees with Srila Jiva Goswami that this verse is an instance of Atishayokti. Everyone say Atishayokti. So if someone brings up 10:51:53, you'll say, Atishayokti. This is a case of Atishayokti. Now, we're continuing in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to Sanatana Goswami, but first we're going to chant. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jandaranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jandaranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jandaranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jandaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When one is firmly fixed in devotional service, whether he executes one or many processes of devotional service, waves of love of Godhead will awaken. Purport: the 9 processes of devotional service are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So these are 9 processes of devotional service mentioned that start with hearing and chanting. So what we're doing today is hearing and chanting. And that leads to remembering, and then other stages of practice in devotional service. You remember what you hear and chant about all day long. Prabhupada said that when he was in business, he knew a man who was a cloth merchant, and he was quoting prices all day, and sometimes the man would take a nap in the afternoon or sleep at night, and then he was still quoting prices in his sleep, because it's what we tend to continue and what we remember. 135 in the Madhya Lila 22, chapter 22. There are many devotees who execute only one of the 9 processes of devotional service. Nonetheless, they get ultimate success. Devotees like Maharaj Ambarish executed all 9 items, and they also get ultimate success. Text number 136. Maharaj Parikshit attained the highest perfection, shelter at Lord Krishna's lotus feet, simply by hearing about Lord Vishnu. Shukadev Goswami attained perfection simply by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection by remembering the Lord. The goddess of fortune attained perfection by massaging the transcendental legs of Mahavishnu. Maharaj Prithu attained perfection by worshipping the deity. And Akrura attained perfection by offering prayers unto the Lord. Vajrangaji, Hanuman, attained perfection by rendering service to Lord Ramachandra, and Arjuna attained perfection simply by being Krishna's friend. Bali Maharaj attained perfection by dedicating everything to the lotus feet of the Lord. Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his hands in cleansing and washing the Lord's temple, his ears in hearing topics about the Supreme Lord, his eyes in seeing the deity of Lord Krishna in the temple, his body in embracing Vaishnavas or touching their lotus feet, his nostrils in smelling the aroma of the tulsi leaves offered to Krishna's lotus feet, his tongue in tasting food offered to Krishna, his legs in going to places of pilgrimage like Vrindavan and Mathura, or to the Lord's temple, his head in touching the lotus feet of the Lord and offering obeisances, and his desires in serving the Lord faithfully. In this way, Maharaj Ambarish engaged his senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As a result, he awakened his dormant loving propensity for serving the Lord. That's from the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. If a person gives up all material desires and completely engages in the transcendental loving service of Krishna as enjoined in the revealed scriptures, he is never indebted to the demigods, sages, or forefathers. Purport: after birth, every man is indebted in so many ways. He is indebted to the demigods for their supplying necessities like air, light, and water. When one takes advantage of the Vedic literatures, one becomes indebted to great sages like Vyasadeva, Narada, Devala, and Asita. When one takes birth in a particular family, he becomes indebted to his forefathers. We are even indebted to common living entities like cows from whom we take milk. Because we accept service from so many animals, we become indebted. However, if one is completely engaged in the Lord's devotional service, he is absolved of all debts. This is confirmed in the following verse quoted in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:541. And for those of you who have joined us online this morning, you can text in at 650-245-7018. That's 650-245-7018. Our operators are standing by to take your call. Translation 141. One who has given up all material duties and taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda. Of who? Mukunda. Who gives shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even his forefathers who have passed away. It is said, by offering oblations with ghee, one satisfies the demigods. By studying the Vedas, one performs Brahma Yajna, which satisfies the great sages. Offering libations of water before one's forefathers is called Pitru Yajna. By offering tribute, one performs bhuta yagya. By properly receiving guests, one performs nri yagya. These are the 5 yagyas that liquidate the 5 kinds of indebtedness. Indebtedness to the demigods, great sages, forefathers, living entities, and common men. Therefore, one has to perform these 5 kinds of yagyas. But when one takes to the Sankirtan yagya, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, one does not have to perform any other yagya. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni made a statement about the systematic performance of Bhagavad Dharma in connection with statements previously made by the 9 Yogendras before Maharaj Nimi. The sage Karabhajana Rishi explained the 4 incarnations of the 4 yugas. And at the end, in this verse, text 141, he explained the position of Krishna's pure devotee and how he is absolved of all debts. Any question? Comment? Debt-free. Vidi dharma chari bhaje krishnera charono nishidha papachari tarikabu nahiman. Although the pure devotee does not follow all the regulative principles of varnashrama, he worships the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, he naturally has no tendency to commit sin. Purport: the varnashram institution is planned in such a way that one will not commit sinful activities. Material existence continues due to sinful activity. When one acts sinfully in this life, he gets a suitable body for the next life. When one again acts sinfully, he takes on another material body. In this way, one is continuously under the influence of material nature. Purusha prakritisto hi bhunte prakriti jangunan karanam guna sangosya sarasad yoni janmasud. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the 3 modes of material nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Bhagavad Gita 13:22. Due to our association with the modes of material nature, we get different types of bodies, good and bad. One cannot be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, known as transmigration of the soul, unless one is completely freed of all sinful activities. The best process, therefore, is to take to Krishna consciousness. One cannot take to Krishna consciousness without being freed from all sinful activities. Naturally, one who is very serious about Krishna consciousness is freed from all sinful activity. Consequently, a devotee is never inclined to commit sins. If one is pressured by the law or obligations to give up sinful activity, one cannot do so. However, if one takes to Krishna consciousness, he can very easily give up all sinful activity. This is confirmed herein. 143. If, however, a devotee accidentally becomes involved in a sinful activity, Krishna purifies him. He does not have to undergo the regulative form of atonement. Purport: Krishna purifies from within as the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within the heart. This is described in the following verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.542. Sapada mulam vajata priyasya taktanya bhavasya hari pareshaha vikarmayat chotpatitam katanchid tunoti sarvam pratisani vishtaha. One who has given up everything and taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very dear to Krishna. If he is involved in some sinful activity by accident, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated within everyone's heart, removes his sins without difficulty. 145. The path of speculative knowledge and renunciation is not essential for devotional service. Indeed, good qualities such as nonviolence and control of the mind and senses automatically accompany a devotee of Krishna. Purport: sometimes a neophyte devotee or ordinary person thinks highly of speculative knowledge, austerity, penances, and renunciation, thinking them the only path for advancement in devotional service. Actually, this is not a fact. The path of knowledge, mystic yoga, and renunciation has nothing to do with the pure soul. When one is temporarily in the material world, such processes may help a little, but they are not necessary for a pure devotee of Krishna. In the material world, such activities end in material enjoyment or merging into the effulgence of the Supreme. They have nothing to do with the eternal loving service of the Lord. If one abandons speculative knowledge and simply engages in devotional service, he has attained his perfection. The devotee has no need for speculative knowledge, pious activity, or mystic yoga. All these are automatically present when one renders the Lord transcendental loving service. You're such a great audience. You just rapt attention hearing all this. Text 146. Tasman mad bhakti yuktasya yogino vaimad atmanaha nagyanam nacha vairagyam praya shreyo bhavad iha. For one who is fully engaged in my devotional service, whose mind is fixed on me in bhakti yoga, the path of speculative knowledge and dry renunciation is not very beneficial. Purport: the path of devotional service is always independent of other activity. The path of speculative knowledge and mystic yoga may be a little beneficial in the beginning, but it cannot be considered part of devotional service. This verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:20-31, was spoken by Lord Krishna when he was speaking to Uddhava before his departure from this material world. These are important instructions given directly by Lord Krishna. Sri Uddhava asked the Lord about the two kinds of instructions given in the Vedas. One instruction is called Pravritti Marg, and the other is called Nivritti Marg. These are directions for enjoying the material world according to the regulated principles and then giving up the material world for higher spiritual understanding. Sometimes one does not know whether to practice speculative knowledge and mystic yoga for advancement in spiritual knowledge. Krishna explains to Uddhava that the mechanical process of speculative knowledge and yoga is not necessary for advancing in devotional service. Devotional service is completely spiritual. It has nothing to do with material things. It is awakened by hearing and chanting in the association of devotees. It is awakened by hearing and chanting in the association of devotees. Because devotional service is always transcendental, it has nothing to do with material activity. How about that? Text 147. Ete na hyadbhuta vyadha tava himsadayo gunaha hari bhaktao pravrittaye na tu su para tapinaha. A hunter, O hunter, good qualities like nonviolence, which you have developed, are not very astonishing. For those who are engaged in the Lord's devotional service are never inclined to give pain to others because of envy. Purport: this is a quotation from the Skanda Purana. It was spoken by Narada Muni to the reformed hunter Mrigarhi. Do you know the story of Mrigarhi, the hunter? He was a hunter. He hunted for a living, but he had a special way of killing the animals that was taught to him by his father. And that was he'd half kill the animals, and he'd leave them till they'd writhe in pain and then die, and then later he'd go back and collect them up. So Narada Muni one day was walking through the forest, and along the path he saw a deer and then some other animals that were killed, and they were half killed, writhing in pain. And Narada thought, who's doing this? And then he saw off in the forest this hunter was getting ready to kill another animal. So Narada walked into the forest, and the hunter said, "Oh, you ruined everything. All the animals ran away. And who are you?" And then he saw that he was a sage, and they got engaged in conversation. And then Narada told him that, "I understand that your livelihood is hunting, so it's not that bad. But why are you half killing the animals?" And he said, "Because my father taught me that this is very good, to half kill them." And then Narada Muni showed him how whatever he makes a living entity suffer, he'll have to suffer equally in his next life. And so the hunter, feeling the powerful association of Narada Muni, became a little introspective and thoughtful. And he said, how can I, be free from all this reaction and give up this sinful life I'm living? And Narada Muni gave him a very powerful and scary instruction after that. What was that? Break your bow, and then I'll tell you. First, break your bow. Throw your iPhone, laptop, and everything else in the bay, and then we'll start talking. So then he told them about devotional service. And Mrigarhi became a devotee, and he started chanting Hare Krishna perpetually. And then later, when Narada came back with one of his friends to visit his disciple, Mrigarhi came running from his hermitage, and he was hopping from one side of the road to another. When he finally met Narada and his friend, they said, "Why are you jumping like that?" He said, "There are ants on the road. I didn't want to step on any one of them." And then they had realized the change of heart of the devotee from being addicted to making animals suffer to not wanting to kill an ant. So these qualities naturally develop as one chants Hare Krishna and gets the association of pure devotees of the Lord. My dear Sanatan, I have now in detail described devotional service according to the regulative principles. Now hear from me about spontaneous devotional service and its characteristics. The original inhabitants of Vrindavana are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called ragatmika bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavana, his devotional service is called raganuga bhakti. Purport: in his Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami states, when a devotee follows the footsteps of a devotee in Vrindavan, he develops raganuga bhakti. Text 150. Iti swarasika raga parama vishtata bhavet tanmayi ya bhavet bhakti satra ragatmikodita. When one becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his natural inclination to love is fully absorbed in thoughts of the Lord. That is called transcendental attachment. And devotional service according to that attachment is called ragatmika, or spontaneous devotional service. Now you all know what ragatmika devotional service is, or do you want me to read it again? Okay? When one becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his natural inclination to love is fully absorbed in thoughts of the Lord. That is called transcendental attachment. And devotional service according to that attachment is called ragatmika, or spontaneous devotional service. Anuga means to follow. So ragatmika means describes the attachment that one develops at a certain point. And this is a whole subject that we're opening up here, but I'm going through systematically, so I'm not jumping to any one point. And we'll get into that discussion on an ongoing basis. But this point about ragatmika bhakti means that at a certain point of hearing and chanting, it's no longer mechanical. You don't do it because your spiritual master asked you to, or because it says you should do it in the Shastra, but because you have an intense attachment to it. It becomes your food. It becomes your life and soul. You can't live without it. Just like, anybody here skip lunch yesterday? I know I didn't. It's my favorite time of day. And so, I mean, I have a real affinity for lunch. I just become so happy, to take prasadam in the afternoon for some reason, or any time for that matter, but mostly in the afternoon or morning. I become jubilant, actually. When I know there's prasadam and it's time, I can just sit down and take prasadam. I merge into the experience. And so there's a way in which, just like one might develop this spontaneous or attachment to eating. So similarly, hearing about Krishna and his pastimes and instructions and so forth become unlimitedly attractive to a devotee. And this is a sign of attachment. One's interest in hearing about Krishna and attachment to it is a direct indication of one's advancement in devotional service. And for those who want to text in, the number is 650-245-7018. Text 150. 1. Ishte ghada trishna ragera swarup lakan. Ishte avishtata tatashta lakan. The primary characteristic of spontaneous love is deep attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Absorption in thought of Him is a marginal characteristic. So raganuga means that after one's developed attachment, they become focused on a particular kind of devotion as performed by one of the residents of Vrindavan. And then very specifically cultivates that kind of hearing and the same mood of devotion of that particular devotee in Vrindavan. Not to be done prematurely. Yes.
Is that the only way, Prabhu? Like how, if you want to become a doctor or lawyer, that's the way, like that? Is that the stages? Raganuga, Ragatmika, and then Prema, like that?
Yes, but it begins with hearing and chanting, and following the regulations of Bhakti Yoga. As we just heard, the whole section we heard about was Vaidhi Bhakti, and devotional and worshipping the deity, performing one's prescribed number of rounds and so forth. And after some time, one will develop a taste and then attachment to that. And at a very advanced stage, after one's past anartha nivritti, which means there are no more distractions from material desires, because the mind is overcome. We can't sit down and think about Krishna because the mind has so many other thoughts in it. We'll think of something else. We'll be carried away literally by the mind to some other place. So one has to cultivate for a long time the hearing and chanting, and actually genuinely from the inside develop an attraction for this. And then naturally these other stages will develop, and one will develop an affinity for hearing about a particular devotee in Vrindavan, that their kind of devotional service. And yes, that is the process. This is from the hearing and chanting stage to Ragatmika Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach this, that the residents of Vrindavan are they're the ones that hold this kind of devotional service, and then one must follow in their footsteps and develop the same spontaneous attitude that they have. This is the process for going back home to Goloka Vrindavan. Yes?
Prabhu, of the 5 processes which you mentioned, is it natural if one has more attraction for one thing than the other? Personally, for me, I don't have that much attraction for deity worship. So what would be the recommendation? Should I actually...
We just heard it. Actually, it said that you can buy one process or you can do them all, or a combination therein. So Maharaj Ambrish is given as an example of somebody who did everything. He did all the processes of devotional service 24 hours a day. And there are others like Shukadev, who is famous for speaking. And that's what he did. So yes, there's a way in which one might become more attracted to a specific kind of process of devotional service.
So Prabhu, I have been having this question even in the 5 and also the extended 64 items. Why isn't preaching not explicitly mentioned, or is it inherent?
It is in kirtan.
Oh, kirtan.
Kirtan
okay.
is preaching. It means you hear chant, and then naturally you'll speak what you heard about. And that's preaching is kirtan. Yes.
Like you are explaining about the Ragatmika Bhakti. So it's like every devotee has to come to that Ragatmika stage, or it's like in ISKCON generally we see like we see by so many sannyasis, Prabhupada, even Prabhupada, like in the last breath they preached the Bhagavad philosophy or even Bhagavad Gita basics.
That's not exclusive of Ragatmika Bhakti. Ragatmika Bhakti means being intensely attached to the process of devotional service, and doesn't mean that one has to retire from the process of preaching necessarily. You look at Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, who are the direct associates of the Lord, and as Prabhupada describes what were their external primary activities, he says exegetical endeavors. Exegetical endeavors. What were they ordered to do? Exegetical endeavors. That means they're writing books. So they're distributing, they're book distributors. They're putting together the sampradaya in a systematic way, and they were doing excavation of holy places. That required bringing in all kinds of equipment and dealing with contractors, right? It's a lot of work, right? Chaitari Prabhu. These kinds of work they were doing, and they were on the highest platform of devotional service. So there's described here. We'll hear more about this process, but internally and externally. And externally, one goes on following the regulative principles of devotional service. Internally, one may cultivate this. And again, to give the all-important caution, we're only going through this systematically, hearing about it. Just because we're hearing about it doesn't mean that we can do it. What means is, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur cautioned his students not to try to jump into this prematurely. Nowadays it's a fashion in Radhakund. You can go to somebody there and they will, anybody who walks in the door, they will give you a mantra and a conception of what you are in the spiritual world, supposedly. And then say, you practice like this, because this is idea that you become focused on your identity in the spiritual world. But actually, unless one is qualified for such remembering of Krishna, the mind will simply go off to material activities, and that's what happens. So one has to go through the process of hearing and chanting and working hard in preaching. Prabhupada showed to the very end that he was engaged in kirtan, speaking the Bhagavatam into a dictaphone and so forth.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I had just one doubt, what is this actually means of following in the footstep? Like Raganuga, you explained that first.
It means that at a certain point you become very interested in a certain kind of devotional service. Like there are devotees who are engaged in serving Krishna as friends. And some are serving Krishna as parents, some as lovers, like that. And the devotee very particularly becomes interested in those topics. And then Raga Anuga Bhakti is a process of actually following the kind of mood of that particular servitor.
So Srila Prabhupada any time has described or said that
in what we're reading right here.
This
is Prabhupada's books, we're reading it, and he's describing it. So let's hear some more. If one follows in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan out of such transcendental covetousness, he does not care for the injunctions or reasonings of Shastra. That is the way of spontaneous love. Purport: Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that a devotee is attracted by the service of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, namely the cowherd men, Maharaj Nanda, Mother Yashoda, Radharani, the gopis, and the cows and calves. An advanced devotee is attracted by the service rendered by an eternal servitor of the Lord. This attraction is called spontaneous attraction. Technically, it is called Swarup Upalabdhi. This stage is not achieved in the beginning. In the beginning, one has to render service strictly according to the regulatory principles set forth by the revealed scriptures and by the spiritual master. By continuously rendering service through the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, one's natural inclination is gradually awakened. This is called spontaneous attraction or Raga Anuga Bhakti. An advanced devotee situated on the platform of spontaneity is already very expert in Shastra conjunction, logic, and argument. When he comes to the point of eternal love for Krishna, no one can deviate him from that position, neither by argument nor by Shastric evidence. An advanced devotee has realized his eternal relationship with the Lord, and consequently he does not accept the logic and arguments of others. Such an advanced devotee has nothing to do with the Sahajiyas, who manufacture their own way and commit sins by indulging in illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling, if not meat-eating. Sometimes the Sahajiyas imitate advanced devotees and live in their own whimsical way, avoiding the principles set down in the revealed scriptures. Unless one follows the 6 Goswamis, Sri Rupa, Sanatan, Raghunath Bhatta, Shri Jeev, Gopal Bhatta, and Raghunath Das, one cannot be a bona fide spontaneous lover of Krishna. In this connection, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti. Kabe ham bujhaba she jugala piriti. The Sahajiyas' understanding of the love affairs between Radha and Krishna is not bona fide, because they do not follow the principles laid down by the 6 Goswamis. Their illicit connection and their imitation of the dress of Rupa Goswami, as well as their avoidance of the prescribed methods of revealed scriptures, will lead them to the lowest regions of hell. These imitative sahajas are cheated and unfortunate. They are not equal to advanced devotees, Paramahamsas. Debachis and Paramahamsas are not on the same level. 154. Devotional service and spontaneous love is vividly expressed and manifested in the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Devotional service that accords with their devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti, or devotional service following in the wake of spontaneous loving service. This verse is also found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. 155. When an advanced realized devotee hears about the affairs of the devotees of Vrindavan in the mellows of Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, he becomes inclined to do one of these ways, and his intelligence becomes attracted. Indeed, he begins to covet that particular type of devotion. When such covetousness is awakened, one's intelligence no longer depends on the instructions of Shastra, revealed scriptures, or on logic and argument. This is also from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There are two processes by which one may execute this Raga Anuga Bhakti, external and internal. When self-realized, the advanced devotee externally remains like a neophyte and executes all the Shastra conjunctions, especially those concerning hearing and chanting. But within his mind, in his original purified self-realized position, he serves Krishna in Vrindavan in his particular way. He serves Krishna 24 hours a day and all night. Text number 158. Seva saraka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tadbhava lipsuna karya vraja lokanusharataha. The advanced devotee who is inclined to spontaneous loving service should follow the activities of a particular associate of Krishna's in Vrindavan. He should execute service externally as a regulative devotee as well as internally from his self-realized position. Thus, he should perform devotional service both externally and internally. That's from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yes?
Thank you. My answer. I got my answer.
Got your answer.
Thank you.
Number 159. Nija bhishta Krishna preshta pacheta lagya nirantara seva kari antar mana haya. Can you say this verse? Give her the microphone. She speaks Bengali.
I do speak, but these are some of the words which we don't use like local.
Are you reading the script, the Bengali?
I don't have it, but
okay.
I can read. I can try.
Okay, here. Okay, now we'll really listen. Here's some.
Nija bhishto Krishna preshto pacheto lagia নিরন্তর সেবা করে অন্তর্মনা hoya. That last one, it's like, I'm not very sure. The hoya.
Yeah, it's hoya. That's not
hoya,
pronounced as
yeah.
an N. Just like gosai. It's spelled, looks like gosani if you're reading it as in English.
Hoya. Okay. Yep.
Thank you very much. Actually, the inhabitants of Vrindavan are very dear to Krishna. If one wants to engage in spontaneous loving service, he must follow the inhabitants of Vrindavan and constantly engage in devotional service within his mind. The devotee should always think of Krishna within himself and should choose a very dear devotee who is a servitor of Krishna in Vrindavan. One should constantly engage in topics about that servitor and his loving relationship with Krishna, and one should live in Vrindavan. If one is physically unable to go to Vrindavan, he should mentally live there. 161. That was also from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Krishna has many types of devotees. Some are servants, some are friends, some are parents, some are conjugal lovers. Devotees who are situated in one of these attitudes of spontaneous love according to their choice are considered to be on the path of spontaneous loving service. My dear Mother Devahuti, O emblem of peace, my weapon, the disc of time, never vanquishes those for whom I am very dear, for whom I am the supersoul, son, friend, spiritual master, well-wisher, worshipable deity, and desired goal. Since the devotees are always attracted to me, they are never vanquished by the agents of time. Purport, this was spoken by Kapila Dev to his mother Devahuti and is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25.38. Kapila Dev instructed his mother in Sankhya Yoga, but the importance of Bhakti Yoga is mentioned here. Later, Sankhya Yoga was imitated by atheists whose system was founded by a different Kapila, Rishi Kapila Dev. So, in our line coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, we are carefully advised and repeatedly advised to patiently and persistently practice the process of Vaidhi Bhakti in the form of hearing and chanting about Krishna, especially Kirtan, Sankirtan, chanting the holy names of the Lord. Because etan nirvidyamananam ichatam akutobayam yoginam nripanirnitam harirnamanu kirtanam. Can't believe I remembered that. That this is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all. Shukadev Goswami says to the king Parikshit, the Harinam, the Sankirtan, within that process of chanting Hare Krishna, everything else will come. And because Krishna is the Chaitya Guru, and he also manifests externally as the instructing spiritual master and the Diksha Guru, one has help from inside and from without. And it is, I don't have time to go into it now, but there's much evidence in Shastra that by this process of chanting Hare Krishna, and the other things we mentioned too, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam associated with devotees, worshiping the deities, there is a way that as one seriously performs that process, he or she naturally develops a taste and attraction after anartha nivritti especially. That means that once one is purified one's heart of the unwanted things, the distractions to devotional service, which include laya, which means sleep, the tendency to sleep instead of chanting. Like start chanting them, start to hear them. Like this means one has anarthas. It has unwanted things still within the heart. It's not because you have to sleep, because if someone said, "You just won the lottery," you'd wake up right away. It's not the subject matter, it's the subject matter, it's not the context or that you're actually tired. So, laya, vishepa means distraction, that one's subject to distractions. It's one's chanting, hearing, and then thinks, I got to do something else. This is more important. I have to look up that thing because there was a sale on and it was 50%, it might be over today, and then boom, you're gone. And then there are aspects of rasasavad, which means a taste. Within one's senses, there's still a residual taste for material sense objects that are not in relationship to Krishna. And so the senses will wake up and say, I want that. But that's not part of it. That's not part of our programs. I still want it anyway. And then there are... Anyway, there are five persistent, these are called the five persistent obstacles to bhakti. And these are what block one from coming to the stage of ruchi or taste. And as one continues the process of hearing and chanting in the association of devotees vigilantly, diligently, then those start to diminish. We hear from the Bhagavatam, Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yutama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. They're about 60% gone. That's why it says they're almost completely destroyed. It means about 60%, 50 or 60% gone. That's enough to leave you alone long enough so you can actually do your worship. Otherwise, you're so distracted you can barely do anything. And once one becomes purified to that stage, there's a way in which a taste, an actual positive taste for devotional service. It exists. It's actually real. Someone facing anartha nivritti may think it's impossible. Everything else is so distracting, and they might even think, if they're cynical, that no one else can do it either. Because if I can't do it, no one can do it. And then they might give up the process of devotional service and then realize I have to come back to it because there's no other alternative. But if one is persistent and one gets good association and one follows the process, one can actually overcome the 5 persistent obstacles and come to a stage of steady devotional service, or nishta, when he's no longer distracted by these 5 persistent obstacles. And then past nishta, one comes to ruchi, or where the attraction for hearing and chanting actually comes naturally and spontaneously. So this, it's necessary to go through these stages in order to rightfully claim any kind of internal cultivation of this kind of raganuga process. One should wait for that to happen by going through the stages, following the regulative principles, hearing and chanting and serving and so forth, until one naturally comes to that stage, and not prematurely try to jump into that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not allow his sannyasis, even advanced devotees who had been around for a long time, to hear about the intimate pastimes from the Govinda Lilamrita, and even some sections from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He prohibited them from reading Ramananda Roy's section, and definitely didn't allow them to recite them in public for brand new people to hear, because it's such a high topic and it can be so misunderstood so easily by people who think, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. I and then they become entangled, actually, even more. So very strictly, he warned his followers, and he admonished those who tried to prematurely take to the process. And Prabhupada mentions sahajya. Sahajya means something that comes, sahaja. It means it's born easily. It's just like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got that. You didn't get it yet. You don't deserve it, sir. So you think, sahaja, I just got it. I'll just do it. You can't just do it. You don't have it yet. You're not qualified. You have to be qualified for that. So our acharyas are protecting us. We're hearing these topics because we should understand what is the progression of devotional service, and it's given to us by Srila Prabhupada. Not that we boycott these sections because I'm not there yet, or for any other reason. We have to read all of his books and understand the instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to Sanatana Goswami. But we should also be very much aware of how our acharyas are administering that process, and what they're specifically advising. And if one jumps somewhere else and thinks, I can get it easier over here, then one will be lost. You'll be ruined by doing that. You have to be faithful to the acharya and take it as it's prescribed. I have a friend, every time he gets sick, he goes to this is in Vrindavan, because if you go to the pharmacy, they'll give you anything. So he goes and gives me antibiotic. Give me some antibiotic. I say, you don't need antibiotics. That's for bacteria. It's not for viruses. You got a virus, probably. He says, I want antibiotics. And he'll go and they'll give him antibiotics because he'll pay rupees for it. And then they tell him take 1 a day, and he takes 2 a day because it's got to work faster. And then when it doesn't work after 2 days, he feels worse. He goes back and he blames the doctor and said, give me something else. And they do. And he takes that also. And that's not how you get better. You have to go to the doctor first, and then the doctor says take the medicine, and then you take the right amount, and you take the full course, and then things work out. Don't self-prescribe. So first find yourself the right doctor. How? Make sure there's a diploma on the wall, and all the symptoms of a doctor are there, and all that kind of stuff. And then you can surrender yourself and say, okay, I've got the process, I'm a line process, and then go through hell or high water, whatever you have to do. You're going to have to endure a major suffering because you have to give up attachments. And that's what death means. Death is only, I have to give up my conception of who I am in this life and all the things that I think I own. And then when it comes to the very end, and you go like, oh, you mean I don't get to keep all this stuff? It's like a big shock. And there's a lot of pain in that, moving on. And so we die to live. And we go through the process through hearing and chanting, association with devotees, and taking the order of the Shastra and the spiritual master as our life and soul. And then Krishna helps from within the heart, and we get special mercy. We have a text? Yes.
It's from Sudhi Prabhu. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class.
You have to speak up and put the microphone a little closer.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. If we chant the prescribed number of rounds, follow regulative principles, and do book distribution service per our capability, is that sufficient?
Yeah, doing book distribution service, by the way, is also a kind of very powerful sadhana. Because, first of all, sadhana, the best and most powerful kind of sadhana is that by which you please Krishna. And Krishna is most pleased when you please his devotees. And, for instance, if you're distributing the books of the Acharya and he's pleased, then you're going to get some special mercy to move on. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado, yasya prasada nagati kutopi. You get facility for that. And also, shushu shro sharadhana sya vasudeva kataruchi syan mahat seveya viprapunya tirta nishevanat. That one should, if by serving a great soul, one develops an affinity for hearing about Krishna. Is it sufficient to chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regular principles, and do book distribution the rest of your life? For what?
Is not mentioned for what.
Is it sufficient?
Is that sufficient?
Well, it's pretty darn good. But as you do that, you'll notice that you'll become. Anyway, you should make advancement in devotional service. When the
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, just to, I think the text message which I sent was a bit earlier. I think my phone got hung up and I had to reboot it. But anyhow, what I meant by is that sufficient? Is that sufficient for advancement in this life?
It depends on the quality. Everything depends on the quality. The quality of the chanting is all important. So if you chant 16 offenseless rounds with full concentration and love in your heart, if you chant one mantra unoffensively, without offense, and with full concentration and love, that's sufficient. What to speak of 16. So quality is important. And also, in a strange way, quantity is quality. Because there's numerical strength. Yes.
Maharaj, I have one more question. So, by doing book distribution or engaging in the service that pleases the devotees of Krishna and hence pleases Krishna, does that lead to an improvement in the quality during chanting?
Yes. Because when you go... Because I quoted a couple verses. Just by serving the great souls, the Shastra says, then they give you mercy and the affinity for hearing is awakened. And also, there's inherently, in going out to distribute books, Prabhupada calls it practical samadhi. Because you're selling Krishna's book, and you're talking about Krishna, you're depending on Krishna. I mean, you could go out and sell soap or any other thing, but you're going out and selling Bhagavad Gita. So you really have to think about, why am I doing this? And people will ask you about the book, and you become entangled in that. Anything you sell, you have to become entangled in. And you have to know about it and so forth. So there's a way that going out to sell books is a kind of samadhi. Prabhupada describes in a purport, Kriyasu Yatach Charanara Vindayo. He said one has to engage in practical activity. And he said that Krishna consciousness movement is specifically centered around this distribution of transcendental literature. And then he said that one, through that process, becomes absorbed in thinking of Krishna. And yes, it's very helpful. The other point is, when you go out and distribute the holy name or books, you see for yourself how living entities are spiritual in their hankering for spiritual knowledge and association. And in seeing their enthusiasm, you are reborn each day. That is, your devotional service becomes re-enthused because you remember what it's like the first time you got devotional service and in contact with it, and it re-enlivens you. So I think it's a perfect combination. You should keep doing it. It'll work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Okay, Vital and then Ramananda Saka.
Maharaj.
And then Natalie.
Maharaj, you mentioned about the quality, right? particularly with respect to the chanting. Similarly, is there a quality of book distribution as well? You did talk
Definitely,
about
because of the transcendental activity, but if one goes out with a fruitive mentality and thinking, I'm going to be number one, and then everyone says, hey, you're number one, and they say, like, I'm number one. Instead of thinking, I'm a devotee of Krishna, I did something for my spiritual master, you're thinking, I'm number one, and then you have to maintain being number one. That takes a lot of work and concentration, and your mentality may be wrong. So when we do services, we should think, why am I doing this? First and foremost, as Prabhupada says, the Goswamis, they wrote for self-purification. They say that themselves. And Prabhupada said, anyone who's writing Vaishnava literature should think, not to think, I'm going to become a famous author. I really want to get my name out there. I want to be on Oprah. She's not around anymore. But, this is not the motivation. It's just self-purification. So if you do any service with the wrong mentality, then you're not going to get the right result. You should do it with the proper mentality. Okay. Ramananda.
I have two questions. One question is regarding chanting of the holy names without offense. And you mentioned that even if we can chant one name without offense, that is very good.
Not very good. It's
yes, but if you look at these 10 offenses, most of them are not that they are only committed during the chanting. Most of them can be committed at any time. For example, offending a spiritual master. And it's that you can chant and then the next day you offend.
Offending the spiritual master, that offense Prabhupada mentions is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. That is particularly offensive. Means that you neglect the order of your spiritual master. You've taken a vow and then you don't do it. So that's an offense. And also, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur adds, by the way, to the commentary that we read in the 6th canto, that if you don't accept a spiritual master, then you're also chanting and committing the offense of disobeying the orders of the spiritual master, because you don't have a spiritual master.
So like that, for example, committing sins on the strength of chanting, he may chant today and tomorrow he may commit a sin. And then we cannot say that he chanted without offense, because that's
a way
an
of life.
offense.
There's a carryover, there's a momentum, there's a residual to that. Yeah.
So what I'm getting is all these offenses, they can be committed at any time, not just during the chanting. And also one of them, the 10th offense is getting attached to any material things, really. That is also listed as an offense. So it really gets to the point that to be able to chant without offenses, one has to be liberated. Otherwise, that 10th offense, first of all, it cannot be said that without liberation, how is it possible that he is not even attached to material objects in his chanting?
So there's different stages in chanting. And the stage which is called the clearing stage, or the intermediate stage, is the stage at which one is trying to avoid offenses. In other words, you're arranging your life in all different ways so that your chanting can become offenseless. You may make a mistake, you may see a shortcoming in yourself, and you try to arrange your way out of that so that you don't make that offense. So as you're trying to do that, this is namabhas. It's the clearing stage. And then in the liberated stage, yes, you will chant purely.
But if that is the case, how is it possible to even chant one name without offense?
By the mercy of the holy name itself. This is Shraddha Namabhas. If one has the faith in the holy name, see, Krishna purifies us. It's not by our own endeavor, but partly our endeavor that we try to avoid offenses. We try to be sincere. And if we do that by the descent of the holy name, who sees that we're actually a qualified, sincere candidate, he comes and he gives us mercy, and he will assist us in that way. He'll come to us.
Okay, then can we interpret that to mean that if we have to, especially those who are practitioners of chanting the holy name, whenever a statement comes that if you chant even one name without offense, it really means that you are sincere to avoid the offenses. If you chant even one name with the sincerity of avoiding offenses, then
it means that particular context when it says that one name is sufficient. Yet Brahma Sakshat Krita Nishchayapi Vinasham Ayati Vinana Bogai Upaiti Namas Puranena Tate Prarabdha Karmeti Virote Vedaha. Rupa Goswami says that once there's a spurti, the name actually appears. The full holy name, Shuddhanam, without any covering. When that name appears, then one's material life is completely finished and one is liberated. However, there may be cases where somebody chants one name innocently. Then one begins the process which will lead to liberation. His sins are actually eradicated, but he's still involved in the material world, but gradually Krishna will pull him out of that. Just as when you pull the plug out of the wall, the fan continues to move, and there's some point at which that stops. And then there's no more reaction in material life.
Thank you. My second question is regarding...
That's the second question, okay. It's like an outline, point A, point B, point 1, 2. Okay, go ahead.
Second question is regarding the book distribution. Let us say, if it is, if for example, if we employ some people paying money to distribute the Srila Prabhupada's books, and how does it, because then also the books gets distributed to the people, is that also acceptable?
Acceptable to whom
service?
For what? Acceptable to whom?
Krishna, because from his standpoint, the books are going back to...
No, it's not acceptable. It's we're going out for our own purification. We're doing this to please Krishna. It's not something... Besides, it's a hypothetical question anyway, because you're not going to find anybody to go out and sell the books. Let me know if you do, and we'll talk to them. But we've taught. I mean, this has been tried before. It's a sales thing. Get some sales guy to come in here, but they can't do it. You have to be empowered to do that kind of thing. It means you have to have some enthusiasm in your heart to say, like, this is Krishna's books. Somebody needs it. Otherwise, people in mundane consciousness think, why are you bothering people? Why would you do this? And things like that. And if it's some profit motive, it's a different thing. But somebody might get involved. I mean, it would be a special person who would actually sign up for a program like that to sell transcendental books for a profit. But they would start to get association with devotees. They'd be bringing them prasadam, and then they'd talk about it. It would winnow out the people who are actually into it. And then one person would hang around and say, well, what else do you guys do? And they'd come to the temple and say, well, where's the rest of it? And then they'd become a devotee. And that's what happens when people come close. There was one devotee who, on Halloween, dressed up as a devotee in Honolulu, just to make a joke with his friends. And then he was downtown with everyone else, and then he saw the Harinam party, and his friend said, go, go, go. So he jumped in, and he was like this. And then they went back to the temple. So as a joke, he went back there too, to really show off for his friends. But ultimately, the joke was on him. His last name is Doss now, by the way. It's initiated devotee. Careful, come close to Krishna. But anyway, it's not a utilitarian thing. It's actually a sincere outpouring of.
No, my
kirtan.
question is actually not someone doing it for a profit. Someone, let's say the temple hires some people to go and distribute the books. So we pay them, and then they do the service. Because we also pay for different things at the temple also.
Yeah, it's not
do the
service
services.
then. It's not a service. It's just they're being paid for it. The mentality is completely different. Okay, this is the last question, and then I promise you, we'll end.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, it's my fault.
Thank you for your instruction. Actually, I can ask this offline if you're out of time, if you want.
Yeah, we're a little out of time. We could take it offline.
It's a very simple question.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll definitely take it offline or the next class we keep going because I've been holding everyone over. Now we're going to have worship of the founder Acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We do his Guru Puja every day because he is the source of this divine knowledge which is being passed down through his books, and the founder of ISKCON, of which we have taken shelter. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sanatan Goswami ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Everyone have a songbook who needs one? Namashreshtam manamapi sachiputramatra sarupam rupam tasya gajamaruparim maturim goshavatim radha kundam girivaramaho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratita kripayatam. Namashreshtam manamapi sachiputramatra sarupam rupam tasya gajam aruparim maturim goshavatim radha kundam girivaramaho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratita kripaya shri gurum tam natosmi. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bando Mui Savadana Mate Bando Mui Savadana Mate Jahara prashare bhai bhavato riya jai. Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te. Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te. Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chitete Koriyaikya. Arnakori ho mane asha. Arnakori ho mane asha. Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshe Uttama Gati. Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshe Uttama Gati. Je prashade pure sarvasha. Je prashade pure sarvasha. Shakudan dilo je janme janme Prabhu se. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. Prema Bhakti ja hoite abhijja vinasa jate. Dirigai jahara charita. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Lokana lokera jivana. Lokana lokera jivana. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya de amore para chaya. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya de amore para chaya. Ibijas Kushik Bhuvana. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya de amore para chaya. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Rishatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotarasta Shishimar Bhai Charanar Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swayamar Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotarasta Shishimar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki. Anantagaldi Vaishnavinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki. Shri Jagannath Puri Ki. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki. Gopremanande. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious assembled devotees. Gopremanande. Welcome again, everyone, to the Saturday morning program. And we see that Sri Krishna Purushottam Prabhu just walked in. So that means that we're going to have some engagement in book distribution today. And there are several spots available today. 3 door-to-door spots and 1 in Santa Cruz. Akuranath Prabhu and Kanka and her husband are all going down there to do kirtan and distribute books. And the other 3 spots are in Cupertino, otherwise known as Cupertino by some. And then there's San Ramon and Fremont. Is that correct? And books are out, ready to go, practically. Just after Prashad, everything will be ready. All you have to do is jump in the car. Remember, the hardest part of book distribution is just getting out there. Once you're there, you don't want to come home because it's mysterious, it's fun, and I dare say it's easy. It's just a matter of doing one's duty and watching how Krishna responds. Other than that, what else could one do? And tomorrow we have Sunday program. Next week, action-packed. We have Wednesday night. We'll have a special session of the Wednesday night program here. It'll be something special, but I haven't exactly decided what. And then Thursday night, we'll gather here at 4 o'clock. Is that correct, SKP? Starts at 4 on Thursday? Yes. 4 o'clock p.m., and we'll recite the whole Bhagavad Gita together. How's that? An idea. And everyone who does that always says the next day, why don't we do this every day? It's a natural response after you chant the whole Bhagavad Gita, and then some devotees actually try it and then get absorbed back into other things. And then on Friday, we have Harinam next week, which means we're going to go out chanting, probably in Palo Alto. And we'll have a chanting party down in public in Palo Alto and distribute many books. And then Saturday we'll have the morning program here plus book distribution all day long. And on Sunday we'll have book distribution for those who can go out. And then in the evening we're going to have a second Gita Jayanti here in the temple room, where we're going to have an authentic fire yajna next to a mountain of Bhagavad Gitas. And we'll offer oblations for many of the verses throughout the Bhagavad Gita, at least some key verses from each chapter all the way through. There's going to be a skit. Is that correct? And we'll hopefully finish our goal by then, which was to distribute 19,065 Bhagavad Gitas. We're inching towards that goal. As of now, we have a few fewer. Can you say that? Than 500 Bhagavad Gitas to go. And only... And towards our goal of how many dollars did we need to collect? 86,000. We only have 20,000 to go in that. So we're inching towards that, getting close towards the hitting the mark of collecting $86,000 for the marathon. And so come and join us for all those things. Lavanya.
I don't understand how we hit the mark.
What's that?
It's still a shock to hear you say we only have less than 500 to go, because I'm still thinking we have time. We still have 2 more weeks. I don't know if we'll make it. And we don't get the scores till the very end. So I don't understand how we got there. That number is still scaring me.
Which number? The
19,000.
19,000. That's why it's called Miracle on Latham Street.
Do we have a breakup of
Nobody
what went
does.
to Motal Gita and what we did door to door? Do we have a breakup?
I think we did about 15,000 books to Motel Gita.
Haribol.
Yeah. And the rest we're doing, been doing door to door. Ramananda Sakar Prabhu.
Regarding the schedule for the Thursday, I remember seeing in the announcements that the program starts at 5 p.m. in the evening.
Yeah, I said that on Sunday, and then I saw SKP sent out something that said at 4 o'clock. So we'll clarify that and resend it.
Okay.
Sunday's 4 p.m. and Thursday is 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Thursday. Okay, and 4 p.m. on Sunday. But we wanted to start a little earlier on Thursday to get a head start. Is that okay? Okay. Yes, SKB, please go ahead.
Prabhuji, we have for next week, 15th festival, we printed a lot of flyers, and we request all the devotees who goes out, just spread the message, because we want very short, 1 week only. So if you invite more people, they can see the fire sacrifice, and we can display the books, and it's awareness for everybody. And no other centers does the Gita Jayanti, only ISKCON. So we should take that opportunity, and that's why today we specifically going and inviting people and collecting some sponsorships also.
Very good. And also keep in mind that we haven't reached the goal yet. We have a ways to go. And it is getting down to the wire. Once it's over, it's over. And we've never missed a goal here at ISV, ever. So we have a little bit of pressure, which is good. So our philosophy is a lot of devotees each doing a little bit. So even if you can distribute 1 Gita or 1 box of Gitas, whatever it is, do whatever you can, because it all adds up and it'll create momentum towards hitting the goal. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Malini's going out of town, several people leaving, so we'd like to have a big weekend, and it's not raining today, which is good. Who are the cooks for today? Give her the microphone. She's standing in for Avantika.
The cooks for today were Bhaktavatsal Prabhu, and I checked and they only told me Bhaktavatsal Prabhu.
Bhaktavatsal Prabhu ki jai! Well done. You're hired.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Fantastic. Now we're going to sing the, yes?
I can come and tell you more details, but at Berkeley we're going to be putting on an event on February 22nd, 2014. I mean, is there anyone here who doesn't remember the Beatles? Raise your hand if you don't remember the Beatles. Okay, well that might be understandable. You know, I guess arguably they were the greatest, rock and roll band of all time, but I'm kind of getting a message from Shesha Maharaj that that's not true.
No, that is true. That is absolutely true.
It's like you said, Chitra, Ratha, and Garbus. That's me. I don't remember that, but I wish I did. Anyway, we're planning this event, a tribute to George Harrison, because he was a great devotee and he did so much and still is doing to spread the holy names of the Lord around the world. So we picked a firm date, and it's going to be a great event with live music and CDs and DVDs and books and chanting and singing and dancing. We're hoping to get HG Prabhu, and we have Guru Das, and maybe we can get Malati for Grace to come. And so.
What's the date?
February 22nd, 2014. It's a Saturday.
February 22nd is the Beatles George Harrison Fest with the old-time devotees Shama Sundar, Malati, the originators of the San Francisco Temple, will be in Berkeley at the Berkeley Temple. It's a Saturday, February 22nd. You can go there and there'll be ecstatic dancing, chanting.
Music, prasadam. I even brought a Krishna Temple tape, the original album produced by George Harrison, DVD, the Hare Krishna tribute to George Harrison.
If you still have any tie-dye left, you can wear that. Tie-dye kurta. Fantastic. Thank you very much. It sounds wonderful. Okay, we will. Any other announcements? Sharira Vijaja Jodendriya Tahika Jibe Bile Vishaya Shaugare Karma Jeti Vayati Lavamai Sadurmati Takejeta Kanina Shangshade Krishna Baradoyamoy Goribare Jihajai Swaprasarana Dilobai Sayana Mritapao Radha Krishna Gunagao Premi Dako Chaitanya Nitai Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Sopa Punyavatam Rajan Vishvaso Navijayate Prasade Sarvatukana Hanirasyopajayate Prasana Chetaso Yashu Puri Paryavatishtate Bhagavat Shri Mahaprasad Ki Jai Shai Shishi Radha Madan Mohan Ji Ki Jai Go Premanande Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Prasadam will be served right outside. Please come take prasadam. Hare Krishna. Thanks for coming, everyone. Nice to see you.